there. My name is Crystal Madabi, and this is my partner Emilio Tomaselli, and we're doing a little tour of our sugar camp this year here in Noojmowin. And one special thing about this place is it actually used to be the location where my family, my great-grandmother, used to have a sugar camp here as well. So I kind of feel like she's here with us and guiding us along the way. And if Emilio, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah. I've been maple sugaring now for I'd say about a dozen years, pretty close to. Something that actually I was brought on by my uncle Lawrence Dominic. He brought up one March, that it was the crust moon, and I asked him what that meant, and he talked about how maple sugaring would start around this time of year, and he said that one indicator to be able to know when it was time to go sugaring was that the snow during the day would actually, you would fall through the snow during the day, and at nighttime it would get so cold where you could walk on top of the snow. So you call that the crust moon. That's what that signifies, and that's when I started off very small with just a pot and a fire, open pit fire, and eventually I bought an evaporator and built a tiny little shack. And we always maintain a small operation, about 30 to 40 trees, and did that together as a family for quite some time. I introduced Crystal to how I do the maple sugaring, and we talked about setting up here because this is a perfect location to do that. We're on a bit of a hill, and we thought maybe we could set up some lines, and that's something that we did today or this year. And
it's something new that we're trying out this year, and it's actually pretty exciting for us to see how this works. And of course we set up some pails as well. The kids definitely like to help out with that end of things, and setting up the lines this year, it almost does half the work for us, so it's been pretty neat to see. So I hope you enjoy our little tour today.
A couple of indicators that'll tell you, if you're dealing with a maple tree, is if you can zoom into here, you can see these little white spots that are on the tree. You can see them there, and you can see them on a lot of the trees. You'll see them all the way up the tree. And another way to be able to tell what a maple tree is compared to others is that a maple tree, typically where you have this one's that branch is a little bit dead there, but you'll see the maple where one branch or twig comes out, it splits. It looks like you have a mirrored image on the other side of that, and you'll notice that with branches, with some of the twigs that come off of it. You'll be able to see that, and that'll be a good indicator of if it's a sugar maple as well too. Have a tree that's at least 12 inches in diameter. Anything bigger than that is great. If you're hitting a tree that's about 20 inches, you would be able to potentially put 2 or more taps to that tree. The other thing you want to make sure you do each year is change where you're going to put your spile. And so you typically want to move your tapping up or down by about 6 to 8 inches, and over to the left or to the right by 2 or 3 inches each year. So that way you're not putting a hole in the same spot every year or close to the same spot. It allows the tree to heal. And also every once in a while you may want to decide to give a tree a break. And so those will be good techniques to keep your tree healthy for a long time, and lots of syrup to come.
We're going to go through the steps of how to set up your tree tap, and a couple of things you need to note are since the sun comes in and it's shining on the south side, we want to make sure that you're tapping on the south side of the tree. Also, you're going to want to look for a tree. The ideal size would be between 12 and 20 inches in diameter, and that's a mature tree, so you want to make sure you're not tapping something that's not ready yet. Also, if it's a little larger than the 20 inches, then you could actually put 2, maybe even 3 taps into one tree, which is completely fine. Another thing is, and I'm gonna start drilling here soon, is you want to make sure that your drill's angled just slightly upwards to help with the sap flow. And so I will get going here right now. So as you can see, the sap's already starting to run out. We've cleaned all the wood shavings from the hole, and so we have our spile already set up here attached to our lid, and there's just a little kind of hook here, and you could usually snap it in, but so you just put it in. So we have a rubber mallet here that we use. You could use a hammer or basically anything, and you just want to make sure that it's, you know, in there pretty good without splitting the wood or damaging the tree. And then there's a hole here on one end of your bucket, so you just want to attach it there, and you can already see the sap starting to flow. So this year when we set up the lines, we have about 60 taps in the trees, and they run from the smaller lines directly into the larger blue line here that you see, and the blue line runs directly into these food grade barrels, and the sap kind of collects itself here, which is really nice.
The taps that we use, it's a 5/16 drill bit that we use to tap, and we actually only tap in a smaller amount. So for a regular pail, you're tapping in roughly about 2 inches, and for these, you're kind of only going like an inch and a quarter in instead, because it's a smaller tap. And we'll try and collect sap in the barrels for about up to 4 days. We want to try and start to boil that sap before 4 days is up, because it starts to sour after time. If we have some really cold nights and all the sap starts to freeze and it's a lot colder, we might be able to get an extra day out of it, but we typically want to try and boil within a 4-day period. So that's kind of what we've been doing here. We did have one boil already this season, and we're going to be doing our second boil here today, or we've started it already, and we'll get to see that a little later.
The way we have the stove set up here is kind of like a gradient system, is what I call it. And what we do is we pull sap from our barrels, and we actually put it into this first pan here. And as all these get boiling down, we kind of transfer it over towards the end, and the end is the finishing tray. So let's just go ahead and transfer some of this down. I'm taking from the second tray here, moving into our finishing tray. And the reason we do it this way is we're just kind of filtering it through, so it gets filtered several times throughout the process. Once we've got everything down to the last finishing tray, we actually take our sap and put it into one of the larger pots like that and finish it off at home on the stove top. And there we also do another filtering process using a felt cone with a liner. I believe it's a cheese pot liner, and that just helps to filter it out even more. So we usually run it through that a couple times as well. So you'll see the sap gets darker as it boils down, and we're looking for it to create that maple sugar.
So this evaporator is actually fairly simply made. It's actually half of a furnace oil tank. It's been cut in half, and a fabricator, a welder, has actually built a top to put on it that also has the ability to attach the chimney to. So you can see here we're actually just using chafing dishes that you use for a catering event, and that's what we're transferring our sap into and using to boil down and to create our syrup. This stove is actually right now each of these trays holds 20 liters, and so the whole evaporator itself right now, if we have it at full capacity, can boil 80 liters at a time. And so an evaporator about this size can typically handle about 80 to 100 trees fairly well. You know, it'll be an early start, and you know, you may get done at the wee hours of the morning, 3, 4 a.m. In the morning, depending, you know, how much sap you have collected. But this boil here, we actually have roughly about 140 gallons, approximately. From that 140 gallons, you know, we're looking at 40 to 1 is what the ratio works out to be. So for 40 gallons of syrup, or of sap, you get 1 gallon of syrup.
So all your hard work pays off once it gets to this point, and we refer to it as the liquid gold. But one other thing I wanted to share with you is actually a Nanabush story that one of our friends just reminded us about here when we're setting up shop. But just I guess a brief version of it is back in the day, the syrup, the sap was actually in syrup form, and it flowed quite freely from the trees. And when Nanabush went to go look for the people in the community, they found them sitting under the trees, drinking a lot of this syrup. And so it was from that day forward, he said, I'm going to make you work for this. And so he ran the sap a little bit thinner, which is kind of what we have today, the tree sap. And so that's why it takes so long for you to boil it down and go through the whole process.